All right, so I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So on the behalf of NICE, let me welcome all of you to the 13th session. And this session is dedicated to understanding India's foreign policy. And we are going to be very strict with time, and each presenter is going to get about 7 minutes. So without further ado, let me start and let me invite the first speaker of the evening, Dr. Dwivedi Chakravarti. Is Dr. Dwivedi Chakravarti here?
He has not joined it.
He has not joined. All right.
Second
So then we go
speaker.
to the second one, Dr. Manan Dwivedi. Is Dr. Manan Dwivedi here? Yes, I can see him. Yes. Please unmute yourself, sir. Yes. Dr. Manan Dwivedi is going to be speaking on the convergence in the Indian and American interest in the global polity. So he's going to give us some ideas about the convergence of India and US foreign policies. So we look forward to his paper. Sir, you'll be given 7 minutes. Please start.
Shall I begin, ma'am?
Yes, please do. Please do.
All
Yes.
Right. I would like to extend a heartfelt thankfulness to the institute, that is NICE, and the unstanding efforts of the people at NICE to make it very acceptable and a genial organization which has its own worth, which has established its own worth in the brief time span of a few years. Now, the theme which I have in mind right now and what has been assigned to me happens to be that of India-US convergence, or the convergence of the interest that the Indian Union has with the United States of America. Now, initially, when we talk about the United States of America, I have written a few books on America. There, people tend to, even academics, journalists, and people tend to castigate United States of America with all kinds of nomenclature, such as a kind of a hyperpower, America's hyperpuissance, America as a monster, things like that. But if you look into the current day world of globalization, convergence, and interdependence, then we need to come to this particular idea that the Indian Union, New Delhi and Washington, have a conjoined destiny. That is one of the assumptions, or what you call the outpourings of my research, as far as my work on United States of America since the last 20-odd years is concerned. Now, there is an entity called as morality and values, which had been relegated to the back burner since the last 10-odd years. But since the coming into the to New Delhi of the New Delhi governmental denomination, what we are going to find is that values and morality have made a comeback. Now, when you talk about morality and values, then President Donald Trump, in his own arcane way, in his own idiosyncratic way, but very effective manner, was able to impinge upon the rest of the global politics, the values, the morality, and the general tethering themes related to United States of America and the grandiloquent American dream. Now, India too is a country which talks about Vishwa Guru, being a Vishwa Guru since 2014 May, since the coming in of the New Delhi denomination. Since then, we have thought about, first of all, confabulating and negotiating with the near neighborhood, that is the South Asian nations. And apart from that, the Indian influence goes beyond the sphere of South Asia, goes into West Asia, on the Oriental side goes on to Southeast Asia, reaches all the way into the Indo-Pacific, all encompassing the new nomenclature of the Quad. That way, the Indian scenario is too also based upon Vishwa Guru, a lot of sniffings of ideology and other doctrinal concerns, which if put into practice, which if placed into practice, are really going to serve the interests of the entire world, the entire international system. When we talk about it in the context of context of India-US relations, then we can go down to the historical part of it. What we are going to find is that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, along with his entourage, went all the way to Washington. Eisenhower, President Dwight Eisenhower also came to India, and they both went in there, but they never struck it off as good friends and as very efficient heads of states, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi had done with President Donald Trump. The Motera interface, along with the Houston interface, all beginning with the United Nations General Assembly's address of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the portals of United Nations, culminating with his great grand speech at the Madison Square Garden. So you know what? The kind of bonhomie, camaraderie, and self-identification, which could have really forged deeper ties between India and United States of America immediately after the aftermath of India's independence in 1947, they somehow could not emerge. Many expletives were shared between the New Delhi and Washington, and India, with its socialistic baggage, immediately after its independence, went on to become part and parcel of the socialist fold, that is specifically Soviet Union. And thus India parted ways, and we started going into our own trajectory. The Indian fence has actually forgotten the fact that it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who wrote a letter to Clement Attlee of Great Britain, and asked him to free India, because he said that you people are wasting all your energies, and you have won the World War II, or you are on the verge of, we are on the verge of winning World War II, but still countries like India, they need to be taken outside the veneer of imperialism and colonialism. So you know what? There are certain snippets of history which have been relegated to the back burner and which have not been given the due admittance as far as the general narrative of the entire panoply of relationship between India and United States is concerned. Now, if you look into the current scenario, it was in 2005 and 6 that the India-US nuclear deal, the 1-2-3 nuclear cooperation agreement, was signed between Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and President George Bush. So, you know, there was a one offense and a kind of a ending of the lacuna in the relationship between India and United States of America. It so followed suit. And apart from that, the defense framework relationship or the DITI relationship was initiated between India and United States of America in 2005. It went all till 2015, and it has been recently renewed. And in the other juncture, if we really, as an attendant fact, if we delve into the deeper interstices of the India-US relationship, then we can find the general idea, the general factoid, the general fact that many common intelligence sharing platforms and treaties have been signed between India and United States of America. This MOA, BECA, and all such treaties have been signed. And if they are going to get realized soon, they were to be realized under the suzerainty and reign of President Donald Trump. But now if they are going to be realized, that can really serve the interest of India for countervailing the Chinese influence or the other nefarious influence,
you have one more
in the light of the Talibanist upsurge in Kabul and the very shaky withdrawal of United States of America away from Afghanistan. Many people have wrongly compared that withdrawal to what happened in Iraq, or actually the kind of misery that befell the Americans as far as the Vietnam War of 60s is concerned. So please, we are going to turn away. I'll take a couple of minutes.
Please wrap up in a minute, if possible. Yes. Please.
Can I take a couple of minutes? I can't hear you.
Okay. Please wrap up. Your time is
all right.
Okay, so please, yes.
So I just completed. So I personally feel I would like to bring the entire discussion of narrative to a summation. that morality and values have made a comeback in the India-US relationship. And the kind of soft power tryst which has existed or which has been spawned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that kind of a soft power tryst of the exchanges between Hollywood and India, of the exchanges between the Indian surge and the American dream, that have really brought in new vistas into focus as far as the larger relationship of India and US is concerned. And I would just end with what President Donald Trump had to say. He came out with the presidential directive in the year 2017, where for the first time in the history of American directives on India, it was mentioned very clearly, very emphatically, and very indelibly that India should really prance out. India should set forth goals of really leaving its influence felt beyond South Asia and should go into the other larger regions and the larger geopolitics and geoeconomics of the relationship. So with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's and his diplomatic one offense, Donald Trump also expected India to be a country with which America, I'm using hyperbole, where America would really share the shoulders of, share the responsibility of world peace, tranquility, stability, and solidity. So I personally feel that Joe Biden might not be very endeared to the New Delhi denomination, but it is still going to be a tough ask for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to really share the kind of yogic chemistry that Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared with President Donald Trump. I see a very bright future ahead.
Thank you so much
for the relationship.
Thank you
wherein
so much, Dr.
both the
Dwivedi.
countries are going to come together and they can really forge a democratic, liberal rule of law and liberalism ordained world order for the rest of the world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dwivedi. Thank you so much for your presentation. Am I audible? Am I audible to the rest of the audience?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank
Yes.
you. So next we have, thank you so much for a very enlightening discussion on, US and India. It is indeed a very, very important, global as well as, of course, to, for our interest. It is something which is very key, and we in India are following this very, very closely. The next, I would like to invite Dr. Erzsebet and Rozsa, who is from the National University of Public Service, Hungary. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. Welcome, ma'am. She is going to be speaking on Iran and India, another very key partnership and something that the Indian government is trying very, very hard to engage. Iran-India relations, and she's going to be talking in the special context of before and after US withdrawal. So something which is of very, like a lot of relevance in Indian and global politics today. So Dr. Rozsa, your piece, the stage is yours, and you will have about 7 minutes. So please wrap up in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swasti, and also thanks for the invitation to Dr. Pramod Jaiswal and the Institute, and probably also the Polish colleagues. I was quite surprised not to be alone, but Polak węgiel dwe bratanki, so we are together in almost every of our fights. So I have to confess that I am not an expert of this region. I am a Middle Eastern expert on the Arab countries and Iran, but in the past few years, I did have to address Iran-India relations. And from this point of view, I think that I will be in a little bit connecting to what Dr. Manan was just speaking about, because Iran-India relations cannot be addressed without speaking about India-US or Iran-US relations. However, when I started to research this relationship, India-Iran, I was quite struck by the fact that it's obvious that there have been so many contacts, historic, ethnic, linguistic. Then we have the Parsis who flew to India from the Islamic context, some of the Parsis back to Iran in the beginning of the 20th century, but by now their number is very low. All the estimations are under 30,000 people. There are even fewer Indians in Iran, in spite of the fact that there are so many Indians who are working millions of them in the Gulf, in the Arab Gulf countries. So it was quite striking that how little relationship, bilateral relationship there is between the peoples of these two countries. And of course, not to mention the Shia minority in the Indian Muslim minority, who make up about 15%, which is 28 million people. So I would have expected, with my practice and knowledge about Shia, that they would go regularly in masses to ziyarat, to the Iranian Shiite sites. But obviously, it seems that the common heritage, common history, common, they are much more like to be used to hide or compensate the manifold issues, disagreements, and tensions between the two countries. Now, if we look at India's position towards Iran, they are much more defined by such realistic and real-term interests and factors. On the one hand, India's position as an emerging global power, India's nuclear arsenal, I will come back to the nuclear issue, India's strategic autonomy, and this is where Dr. Manan's lecture plays in, that the balancing between links to the US and its other partners versus links to Iran, its plan, which was also mentioned in a few other panels as well, to counter the Chinese expansion of the Belt and Road and other political and economic relations, its economic needs, obviously it's energy. I'm not sure that we have time to go into that. And obviously the presence of the already mentioned Muslim, specifically the Shiite minorities in India. I would say that the two very important documents of our most contemporary times on India-Iran relations is the vision of strategic partnership called the Tehran Declaration in April 2001, and the 2003 New Delhi Declaration, which established a new strategic partnership on shared interest in security, energy, trade, technology, and transit. Now, from the Iranian point of view, India is very important to balance and even to escape international sanctions. However, Iran is painfully aware, not only with regard to India, but with regard to Russia or China as well, that if the other partner has to choose between the US and Iran, obviously it will not be Iran, it will be the US. And in fact, the Iranians are very much aware that they have been disappointed, and they do feel disappointed. Sorry for my terminology, but I am telling you the Iranian perspective now, several times by India abiding by the US sanctions, be it on oil, be it on the planned LNG connections, be it on the exploitation by the Indian companies, the Farzad B gas field in the Persian Gulf, be it the Chabahar port, which is built in Iran, not very far from the Iranian-Pakistani border, and and I'm coming back to that. And in spite of the fact that India did try to evade and circumvent the unilateral sanctions and the secondary sanctions set by the Trump administration, it could not succeed. So there are two topics which I find extremely important. One is connectivity, which has been declared to be a primary foreign policy goal for India. Since Iran and India have partly overlapping strategic neighborhoods, it would make sense that they could or they should, to a certain extent, cooperate. However, we also have to note that they have different strategic depths. Iran more to the Persian Gulf, maybe even the Levant, India more towards China or the subcontinent. But where the interests of both Iran and India meet and clash or may clash, it's the two countries that lie in between the two countries, namely Pakistan and Afghanistan. The wider context, Central Asia and the Indian Ocean. A previous panel today was speaking about the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean. And we also have to mention the fact that all these fit into the wider regional environment that we have come to know as Eurasia. And with all these...
Dr. Rozsa, you have
Yes.
1 more minute to wrap up, Dr. Rozsa.
Oh,
You have 1 more minute to
Okay,
wrap up.
then just I switch over to the nuclear program. I think the two countries have quite many things in common. They both of them consider themselves responsible powers against the spread of nuclear weapons. They both call for nuclear disarmament. Both champion the right to the civilian use of nuclear energy. Both have a wide, now even Iran has the so-called full scope safeguards, the full nuclear fuel cycle. But while India is a non-acknowledged nuclear capable state, we have that, it does have nuclear weapons, Iran is accused of running a program. Now with the GCPOA, and especially after the Trump withdrawal, and this will be my last thought, just please bear with me. The Indian experiences were very, very important in the Indian position. First of all, India protested against the Trump administration's sanctions. And Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, said that India follows only UN sanctions. And although India did receive in the beginning a waiver for 6 months from President Trump, in spite of intense lobbying in Washington by Foreign Minister Jai Shankar and other Indian officials, the waiver was not extended. So India very reluctantly, temporarily gave in and suspended its participation in Iranian projects, including the development of the Chabahar port complex, in spite of the fact that the Chabahar port itself was exempted even by President Trump from the sanctions. On the other hand, all the auxiliary, the complementing projects, the railway, the road, the equipment that would come with Chabahar were not exempted from the sanctions. So I think that India and Iran are going to rebuild to a certain extent these relations, and especially with the 25-year deal between Iran and China, I think gives one more imperative why India is coming back and has started to come back to Iran. Thank you, and
Thank you,
sorry
Dr.
for
Rozsa. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Rozsa. You talked about a very sensitive, bilateral, balancing act that we have to do with the current leadership and the current geopolitical scenario. Next, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm sure you'll get a lot of questions on that. Next is Dr. Antonina, and she is joining us from Krakow, and she's going to be talking about China and India. And she's going to be bringing up something that we don't really talk about, in popular conferences as much, which is that, are we going to be fighting our next war over water? So something that the China-India people know very, very closely. Really looking forward to your presentation, ma'am. The floor is yours. You'll get 7 minutes. Please try to stick to the time limit.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. It's a great pleasure and honor to be a part of this conference. I'm passing warm regards to my colleagues in Warsaw and Hungary, particularly. Without further delays, I will share my screen with you because I have a presentation. So please let me know if you can see my screen. You should be able to see my presentation.
Yes, it's visible. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So the title is a little bit provocative, right? Will the next war be fought over water? It was deliberate. So of course, it's hard to predict what will happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Nevertheless, as it was already stressed by Dr. Rao, I did want to focus on a topic which is not that popular, let's say. When we talk about China-India relations, we focus on the border dispute, we focus on economic rivalry, we focus on Tibetan matter in terms of, in political terms, for example, or ideological terms. However, water is not really the most hot topic when it comes to China-India relations. Probably it will change sooner or later. So let's take a look at it now. As a very brief introduction, we have to remember that the border conflict between China and India impacts on all other spheres of China-India relations. It cannot be totally divided or separated from economic or political relations. What I think is that China is actually not interested in solving border dispute with India because it can always be used for a blackmailing practice. And I will use this word blackmailing or blackmail also when it comes to the water context. Here, I wanted to briefly refer to the Doklam standoff in 2017. Of course, the whole world was talking about two armies standing face to face. However, not that many people took a close look at what happened afterwards, because afterwards, after that standoff, which took place in summer, we had a flood on the Brahmaputra River. And here is when politics or geopolitics and water mix. So the thing is that the Chinese side, according to agreement between governments of China and India, was obliged to warn India about the upcoming flood. This, however, did not happen. The Chinese government was excusing itself that their hydrological stations were having some sort of repairs or maintenance, and that's why they couldn't share any data with India. However, many experts say that this is a very clear example how China can use other elements, other spheres to kind of punish India or put pressure on India. See, we have two seemingly unrelated matters, border issue, Doklam standoff, and here we have Brahmaputra flood. However, because of the Chinese activity, they got connected. When we take a look at Brahmaputra, we see clearly that it flows out from Tibet, and Tibet, controlled by Beijing, is actually literally a source of life. You can see in this map that it's a source of rivers such as Indus, Ganges, Brahmaputra, and also very important rivers which also flow through the Southeast Asia, such as Mekong. If we sum up all the people who rely on those rivers and on drinkable water, which flows out of from those rivers, we have almost 50% of global populations. So we can see that control over Tibet is for Beijing a key element, not only in terms of ideology or history or politics, it's also a very down-to-earth geopolitical and geoeconomic matter, because this is how China can put pressure or influence on all countries down the stream. How? Thanks to river dams that China has been building over the last few years. These are grand projects, and right now they are building apparently the biggest dam ever that will be created in Tibet. The thing is that these are power plants officially, but they can also be used for storing or diverting water, which means that they work as taps. You know, if you turn off the tap, it means that water stops flowing or the water level drops significantly, which happened earlier in this year, January, February. This is what happened on the Mekong River, which highly disrupted life and transportation along the whole Mekong River and all those countries in Southeast Asia. This is probably one of the most powerful weapons or tools China will have over the coming years and decades, because we have to face it. We are living in the times of global climate change, global warming. So probably water, drinkable water, will become one of the key issues in geopolitics in 21st century. Some countries also outside of the region we are talking about already see it. And here, very, very briefly, I wanted to refer to the politics or strategy of the United States. In January 2021, a document was declassified according to which the United States recognizes two continental challenges in Asia. One is China-India border dispute. The second one is broadly defined water issue. So we can see that countries, other countries, not just China or India, do see that water will be a key issue over the coming decades. Already, United States has been investing in the Mekong countries. We have the Mekong River Monitor, we have the Mekong-US partnership. So these investments are aimed at making all countries in Southeast Asia economically independent when it comes to water resources. Of course, these are, if you compare this to Belt and Road Initiative, these are kind of minor projects. However, they do show us that countries such as the United States are interested in what is happening in Asia in terms of the water dispute or possible water dispute. I don't want to take too much time. We have so many interesting.
You have one more minute.
Thank you. So actually, it's a very good timing because this is just a very last summary. So of course, this is all the matter of the future. Probably these things won't reach the headlines this year or next year, but in 5, 10, 15 years, I'm pretty sure these will be the key issues. As we know, someone said that probably the next world war won't be fought over oil or gas, but it will be fought over drinkable water. Let's hope it won't happen. Pretty much everything depends on the strategy of China and how China will use this huge, huge advantage it has. Let's hope it will be more cooperative rather than focusing on conflict and pressure. If you want to read something more, please take a look at the article I had the pleasure to co-author for Harvard International Review. For mine, this is everything. I'm looking forward to questions and I'm looking forward to other presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Antonina, and thank you so much for sticking to the time limit. And I must also apologize to everyone, out here. I've been given very strict directions to be, to stick to the time limit. So please don't take it personally. And with this, thank you so much for a very interesting, insightful, and I would say very important aspect of the, the India-China, equation that, of course, we here in South Asia are really very keen to understand better. The next, is Dr. Aleksandra. She's joining us from University of Warsaw, and she's going to be talking about India and a very sensitive area for India with regard to the foreign policy about the Indian northeastern states and what India plans to do there. So the floor is yours, Dr. Aleksandra, and you'll be given 7 minutes. So please start.
Thank you so much, Professor Zhao. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. Unfortunately online, but I hope that the next year we will have a pleasure to meet Kathmandu. To tell you the truth, I've been there twice and I have a lovely memories. So I hope I'm gonna able to visit again. So as you mentioned, the topic of my presentation is the northeastern states in India and India's foreign policy in the 21st century. So the main aim of my paper is to analyze the role of northeastern states in India's foreign policy in 21st century. And to be a bit more precise, I'm also looking at the role of regional parties in northeastern states. Just to be clear, by northeastern states, what I understand by this, it's obviously Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram, Tripura, and Arunachal Pradesh. I know that in some of the research, some scholars also include Sikkim. So my hypothesis assumes that the states from northeast will be playing more important role in next few years in India's foreign policy, or we can say even next few decades. So to verify the hypothesis, it requires to answer, as I believe, at least 5 research questions. So first of all, it is important to check whether the geographical location of northeastern states had an important impact on their role in India's foreign policy. The second question, are there any policies or strategies implemented by the government of India which consider northeastern states as important actors? The third question will be, is regional integration an important part of India's foreign policy? The fourth question, are there any border conflicts in which northeastern states are involved? And the last, 5th question will be, are northeastern states playing an important role in developing economic relations with neighboring states? So for the case study I have chosen, so the role of northeastern states in India's foreign policy in 21st century, I used the theoretical model of liberal theory of foreign policy. Mostly I'm focusing on the works of Andrew Moravchik. Why? Because in his research, in his studies, he underlined the role of internal actor, domestic politics on foreign policy. So now I'd like to briefly answer the question I asked. So the first question about geographic location of northeastern state. So definitely I think is quite obvious to all of us, but still to talk a bit about this, that yes, northeastern states, they have a strategic location. Why? Because they share borders with 5 neighboring countries, such as Nepal, China, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. To answer second question about the policies and strategies of central government in which northeastern states are involved. So yes, definitely northeastern states are important actors in those policies. So we can think about Act East policy or neighborhood first policy, which are promoted by the government of Narendra Modi since 2014, once he was elected as a prime minister, and his party, Bharatiya Janata Party, won more than half of the seat in Lok Sabha. The third question about regional integration, is it important part of Indian foreign policy? Definitely it is. But as we are, probably all of us are aware that SAARC unfortunately failed as a regional organization of regional integration. Unfortunately, I will not go into the reasons. This is not the topic of my paper today. So because of the diminishing role of SAARC, there are other initiatives which are becoming important is Indian foreign policy. So to give the few examples, it will be BIMSTEC, MGC, or BBIN, and of course ASEAN. So all of the organization I mentioned about, the northeastern state will play important role in developing those regional organization of regional integration. Then the fourth question about the border conflicts in which northeastern states are involved. So as it was already mentioned by the previous speaker, Dr. Antonina, so definitely there is India-China border conflict. So we need to, I would like to underline, yes, that there is this India-China border conflict in Arunachal Pradesh, obviously, which is believed by China. It's called Small Tibet. Yeah, it's the part of China, but of course it's administered by India. So here we need to have it into account that that's another factor which make this states, especially Arunachal Pradesh, the key part and a very important actor in India foreign policy. And the last fifth question, it's about the potential role of northeastern state in developing economic relations with neighboring states. So I want to focus on only one issue here, which I decided to choose among other issues I did research on about HATs. So HATs, so the places where the trade happen in the bordering regions. So the HATs are mostly open in Tripura and Meghalaya, but there is a plan to open more of such places in coming years. So it means that going to boost economic exchange in neighboring regions. But of course, only a small part of the research. Definitely there is much more about the role that the states are playing. And to sum up, I believe that as I answered the 5 research questions I asked, as I said, my hypothesis assumes that the state from Northeast will be playing more and more important role in coming years and decades in India foreign policy. Just to add, there's even a Ministry of Development of Northeastern region, which was created in 2001. Then we have, the important thing is that northeastern states, they understand better relation with neighboring countries. They have common ethnic group, religion, values, and language, especially neighboring regions. But to answer the second part of my hypothesis is that unfortunately, as for now, the regional parties from northeastern states, they do not play such an important role. And just to mention briefly why, the first reason is that the politics in northeastern states are dominated by national parties such as BJP and National Congress. We can see clearly, especially the connection with BJP. I want to mention about Northeastern Democratic Alliance.
Aleksandra, please could you wrap up? Yes, please.
Of course. So my conclusion, as I mentioned, is that the northeastern states will play more important role in coming years, but as for regional parties, we still need to wait for them to become important partners. And as I said, the problem is that these politics are dominated by national parties. And the other thing is that the states from Northeast have a very limited number of seats in Lok Sabha. But I'm still waiting for the coming years to show that the regional parties from northeastern state will become more more important in creating foreign policy of India. Thank you so much. And I give the floor to the wonderful chair of this session, Professor Rao. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aleksandra. That was indeed very important and something. It's like a domestic, security challenge for India to nail. And like you rightly pointed out, there's a lot going on as well, there. So that was something that that is something which is very useful for understanding the direction of India's foreign policy, especially the Look East and Act East, etc. Well, the next in line is me. What I'll do is that I'm going to be extremely harsh with myself with respect to time. And if I'm overshooting, please feel free to tell me. I'll try to do my best, however. So let me start. So what am I going to be presenting on today is that I am going to be talking about, India's space, behavior in the outer space, India's collaboration in the outer space. And the paper looks like this. So, the topic of my paper is that, how do we understand, how do we map the India and Quad collaboration matrix in the outer space in 21st century? This is a paper which I've jointly developed with a professor of physics from Banaras Hindu University. So we are trying to sort of bring in both the elements of understanding such a technical subject, but which has a lot of foreign policy implications as well, right? And the central argument of the paper is that we can totally see India's space policy changing and becoming more hybrid, because that is the way that India can best tackle the problems. So, to begin, of course, there are things like, the growth and the evolution of terrorism, the way that the space exploration kind of follows a law of entropy, which means that it can only be forwarded, it cannot be backwarded. So this is a time of, these space interventions, and there's no way that, space faring does not become a very important part of, say, any important country that wants to play a more important role in today's world politics. Having said that, obviously Chinese intentions of global dominance, and coupled with a very non-transparent single party system, all these have made the outer space race a very complex matrix in its own right. And we have a couple of two very wonderful women who have been talking about it, Dr. Rajeshwari Rajgopalan and Dr. Nandita Goswami. So I'm just trying to add to their work and, kind of see that as to what really can India do. So a large part of my paper, it will be available for you to read later, but a large part of my paper, deals with as to what really has been the matrix of, China's very feverish and aggressive, ambitious space program. And of course, we keep hearing things like how USA is worried about it, and how USA had banned China from joining the International Space Station, and then that led China to having their own space station, etc. And of course, that will be completed in a couple of years. And of course, there are points like how the European Space Agency has signaled that they would want to collaborate with the Chinese. Not only the Europeans, also the Russians, who have said that we make our own space stations, and we are also open to sort of, piggybacking the Chinese and vice versa. So because of all this, the one thing that I want to tell you is that, a kind of a Quad arrangement that we see in land and sea here on Earth, a similar kind of an arrangement is also visible when you look at outer space, right? So this is something which is pretty much visible. You will see like-minded countries coming together, collaborating, because collaboration is key if you want to do outer space. So, those kind of things. And the paper deduces the beginning of, this like-minded countries coming together after Chinese, tested their ASAT, which is the anti-satellite weapon, and they did it in a manner which created a lot of space debris, and also, actually invited a lot of criticism. And then the Chinese are collaborating with Pakistanis and North Koreans. So from all possible ways, this is a very important security consideration for India. So, so one of the arguments, like I said, that we see on Earth, we will see a kind of a quad kind of a cooperation coming up in space, because one factor is that the International Space Station is going to be redundant in a few years, and we are going to be in an area of new collaborations. So new collaborations would be needed, and then we will see a kind of a like-minded countries coming together. So this is one of the things. And the other thing is that what is the other factor which really propels this like-minded countries of the Quad coming together in space? Of course, the way the Chinese are going after the helium which is found on Moon, and how that is going to become a very, very important fuel for the future of mankind, because we are all trying to become as carbon free as possible. So those kind of things are also going to propel. Then, of course, like I said, that India's space program also matured. Okay, I mean, we have talked a lot about how India started in the 2000s from that first understanding of space 1.0, and then, towards a kind of a middle, stage of space 1.5, and then finally there's now space 2.0, which is more hybrid, and this is what India is looking at. And then because there's little time, basically what I want to highlight is that what India needs to do is that India can do these 4 things. Okay, these are 4 pointers that I have in mind to share with you. That should be there when India is trying to mature their space intervention. Okay, the first thing that India should do is that India should maintain a norm-abiding, independent approach. Okay, why do I say that? Because unlike China, India's space intervention so far has been really pretty much according to the international norms. India has a reputation, for abiding with the international norms, and that is something which is going to go a long way. Okay, as more and more people come and collaborate, like countries come and collaborate. So that is one thing that India should be keeping in mind. Second, India must maintain a steady pace of development. Why do I say that? Because in India, we are a democracy, and since the 2000s, we have seen a relatively steady pace of development, but this needs to be maintained. I mean, regardless of a lot of other factors that the Indian economy needs to take into account, but the steady pace of development needs to be maintained. And ISRO is doing a lot of activities. I don't have the time to go into each. Third, a very important thing is that India must collaborate proactively with other Quad members. Like, for example, India is already doing a lot of joint missions with NASA. The most important one is NISAR, which is the most expensive imaging satellite. Then India and Japan, we are also started in 2019. And a lot of things that we are doing in Japan's new basic plan, they are also looking for collaboration towards India. And, those kind of things, we are really working together on space traffic management, etc. Similarly, India should be working with Australia. And very recently, we had a kind of an understanding where there was an MOU for cooperation in the civil space science, etc. So, all these things we are doing, and with all these things together, the last point is that this all will enable India to have a hybrid engagement with outer space. And this hybridity is key to understanding the concept of space 2.0, which is not merely technical warfare or commercial, but hybrid technologies that can cater to most of these desiderations. Thank you so much for your attention. I think I have really stopped in time. Okay, thank you. So thank you for being a very patient audience. I look forward to questions later. Okay, with this, the next in line is Dr. Anil Kumar. Dr. Anil Kumar, are you there? Dr. Anil Kumar?
Yes, madam.
Okay, so Dr. Anil Kumar, welcome.
Yes, madam.
Dr. Anil Kumar Mohapatra, and he's joining us from Fakir Mohan University, and he's going to be talking about India's aspirations in the new global order, opportunities and challenges, something which is very timely because, of course, the current world order is pretty ambiguous and full of paradoxes and contradictions. So we really look forward to hearing what you have to say. The floor is yours, and 7 minutes, please.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Please start.
Very good evening to Dr. Rao, my co-speakers, and also I am thankful to Pramod Jaiswal of NICE Nepal for inviting me. And you know that what Gramsci said, that the old is dying and the new cannot born. So the world scenario, the world order is in such a position that the new is not coming. You know that after the Second World War or the First World War and the Cold War, there was some sort of stability. But now we don't have a stability. America is, withdrawing from so many things, and global order, as you know, that the world is fragmenting, economically slow down, and America is retrenching, withdrawing from many multilateral treaties. So, and you know that UN is also becoming gradually, its role is diminishing, and it is the victims of armed conflict. Afghanistan is an example, and how the misuse of veto power in the Syria and Iraq, all these places you will find how this has been misused. So the and China is now is par with America, and America. So now we cannot say it's a multipolar world. We cannot say it's a bipolar world. So now the world order is really in a transition. What I would like to say that global order refers to the norms that regulate the behavior of the states, and that these norms are gradually declining, and gradually these are waning away. And accordingly, what happens? India is trying to. India cannot remain as India was after 1998, and you may say after this LPG after 1990, you will find India's perception about itself and the global perception of India has undergone a lot of change. And one thing that India is was earlier a developing power, and now what Condoleezza Rice said, India has already emerged. India has emerged, is an emerged power. So as a developing country, the norms were different. India was a taker of norms and taker of the norms, and now being an emerged power, India is trying to make norms. India is trying to negotiate norms. So all these are happening, and as you know that the power of the idea and idea of power, this is quite different. So now India, during Jawaharlal Nehru's time, India was talking about the power of the idea, but now India is taking the other route. Now India is augmenting its economic and also security and also its political power. So all these capabilities is being augmented, and India is trying to find an alternative through, for example, BRICS, for example, Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, a member of G20, you may say Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, and India is also coming closer to US. So all these are happening, and India is trying to put itself in a position so that India can say that I have something to change. I can change something. I'm capable enough changing. And another thing that that India has become the now when I'm speaking on this occasion of Indian foreign policy, almost be knowing that India is the president of the UN Security Council. After Cold War, India has been made a member, non-permanent member of Security Council for the third time. So this is how India is. India is setting norms. India is setting agenda. For example, the anti-terrorist initiatives, maritime security, peace building, all these are happening. But what are the constraints? India is trying to rise as a military power, as an economic power, as a nuke power. But despite that, there are many challenges. As you know, that these are systemic challenges and these are perceptual challenges. In systemic challenges, I must say, the international order was made by the winners of the major wars. So at that time, India missed the boat, and it happened in 1945. October 24, as you know, the UN date. So now India was a member, but India was sidelined and India could not catch the boat. And that is one reason. Another reason, that is systemic level, you will find the China, also a subsystemic level, Pakistan, all are balancing India. India cannot, as the first paper presenter said, that India must go beyond South Asia. So the perceptual level also, you will find India, the image of India was quite negative. As Shashi Tharoor was saying, the India was a land of snake charmers and the sages sleeping on the bed of nails. So that image has undergone a change.
Sorry, you have
yeah.
one more minute.
So now India is looked upon. Indians are everybody is seeking Indian help in fixing a computer. So now, and you know that we have got so many domestic challenges like nation building. You may say, as David Malone has said, India's problems are mostly, the security challenges are mostly internal than external. So you may say ethnic problem, you may say religious divide, you may say the political fragmentations. All these are happening in India. So now, what to do? So one should understand that India is capable enough doing so many things. I'm giving some ideas so that we can, you were also talking about Quad. Quad has been criticized. India has been criticized that India is leaving non-alignment. But gradually, that Quad may give an advantage. Then another thing, India is, talking with the group 4 countries like Brazil, Germany, Japan for a UN permanent seat. And India should engage with Global South. And India should navigate through a transitional phase very cautiously. And strategic autonomy, India should care for and guide and defend. And the India must not entangle in US-China quarrel, and India national interest should be protected and promoted by creative diplomacy. And finally, I must say, new modus vivendi between China and India is required. So all these may help India to set norms. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohapatra. That was a very enlightening presentation, especially when you talked about the systemic and the conceptual challenges before India, and about how to find a significant place with national interests taken care of in the current world. Thank you so much. Next is Anshu. Anshu, are you there? I can see you right in front of me. Yes, so I hope you're ready. You could be. Anshu is going to be talking. She's joining us from JNU, and I think she's doing her, she's writing her thesis, and she's going to be talking about India and Russia energy, I think bilateral energy relations. So another very key component for understanding India's national interests be taken care of in a good way, and we keep saying that India has to have a very Russia's relations are extremely important. So let us see what Anshu has to add. We're looking forward to you, Anshu. You have 7 minutes. Please start.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to make my presentation here. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to Dr. Pramod Jaiswal and this nice organization. My topic is India-Russia bilateral energy cooperation in the 21st century. In the changing global scenario of the 21st century, the concept of energy security becomes the most important input for economic growth and human development. Today, the whole world is hungry for energy. For its economic growth, the availability of cheap and affordable energy is the prime need of the economy for any country. This energy security is a top priority for the growing world economy. India is the 3rd largest energy consumer in the world. Ensuring energy security is one of the challenges for the country's sustainable development. Russia is a key global producer and exporter than 80% of its petroleum, oil and gas needs through imports. At present, the volume of bilateral trade of India-Russia countries are $11 billion, but both the countries want to enhance its trade, and therefore they have set a target of $30 million by 2025 for its trades. Both two countries have focused on expanding the cooperation in the petroleum industry. The current energy partnership between India and Russia is an extended traditional part of the bilateral strategic partnership of the Soviet times. Therefore, without traveling into the historical background of India-Russia bilateral relations, it is hard to understand the considerable significant pattern of energy cooperation between both the countries. India-Russia has been the legacy of the long history of bilateral relationship and mutual strategic cooperation that has withstood the test of time. The Soviet Union and the India had shared a strong strategic, military, economic, and diplomatic bilateral relationship. The former Soviet Union played a major role in the encouragement of India's energy sector by building hydropower stations, developing coal industry, finding oil in Indian soil, and helping in sector companies like India's Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, ONGC, HEL, Hindustan Aeronautic Limited, and WIL. Also, Soviet experts helped India not only to protect for oil and gas, drilled well to produce more oil and gas, also build the Indian energy petroleum sector industry infrastructure. Consequently, public oil refineries were constructed in the Gujarat refinery, Barauni refinery in the Begun. Soviet help to India's petroleum industries has been comprehensive. Crude oil products, kerosene and petrol were the main products which the Soviet Union exported to India. Thus, India-Soviet historical relationships have given strong foundation to their present cooperation and priority to mutual investment in the energy sector. After the disintegration of the Soviet Union in the year 1991, trade and economic relations suffered a deep decline and the need for India's energy security re-emerged. However, in the year 2000, Russia introduced economic reforms in his country, which revitalized India-Russia trade and economic relations. Russia, under the presidency of Vladimir Putin, has focused on the energy sector with the motivation to emerge as an energy superpower in the world. Hence, under the strategic cooperation between both the countries, India and Russia have evolved and sustained strong cooperation in the energy sector. The oil and gas industry of India-Russia cooperation successfully operates in terms of trade and investment. Indian public sector firms have invested $50 billion in Russian oil and gas projects since 2001. ONGC Videsh Limited has 20% stake in the Sakhalin-1 project in the Russian Far East. And since 2016, as part of consortium with the Indian Oil Corporation, has invested in the Russia's Rosneft acquired the majority stake in the privately owned Essar Oil for the almost $30 billion. It turns out to the single biggest foreign direct investment in India, and there is mutual interest in continuing investment in the oil and gas sector in future. Further, Russia's Gazprom being the largest gas company and India's major gas firm GAIL has entered into contract for the purchasing of LNG, liquid natural gas, LNG imports from Russia emerged as a new dimension of bilateral energy ties. As per the 20 years contract originally signed between GAIL India Limited and Gazprom in October 2012 and revoked in January 2018, India will get 2.5 billion ton of LNG a year. The first cargo of Russian natural gas was received in June 2018. Importantly, India managed to negotiate a cheap price of Russian supplies, which cost less than Indian imports from other sources, LNG from Qatar, Australia, and the United States. Thus, in the recent development in energy sector, energy has consolidated as a major pillar of India-Russia bilateral cooperation. India's cumulative oil and gas investment in Russia exceed $15 billion, and the most oil India annually extracted from its oil and gas investment abroad is from Russia. With Rosneft and its partners purchasing Essar Oil, renamed Naira Energy, for $12.9 billion in 2017. Russian investment in India exceed $18 billion. Russia has vast energy resources, and India, which is energy deficient, will need access to more energy as its economic grows. Apart from state sector companies signing agreement with Russian companies, a positive development is the entry of the Indian private sector in the developing energy ties with Russia. We have waited long for a significant entry into the Russian oil and gas sector, and now we are making progress. OVL had signed an agreement with Rozsa.
Please could you wrap up? Anshu, could you please wrap up?
Okay. Acquired a 15% stake in the Bangkok Neft project. To sum up, both the countries are focusing on energy sector, particularly in hydrocarbon and nuclear energy sector. Ensuring energy security requires dealing with various risks like market risks, technical risks, transport and supplies risks. To face the situation, there are multilateral colleagues are working to promote trade and investment cooperation in the field of energy sector. India, energy deficient nation, and Russian energy surplus nation, is the natural partner in the field of energy sector and have a mutual interest in cooperation in this sector. Moreover, projects and cooperation between both the countries have made it possible to take this relation to the level of strategic partnership. According to a report by the International Energy Agency, India is likely to emerge as the world's third largest energy consumer by 2025, behind only the US and China. Thus, the COVID-19 pandemic is exerting a complex impact on global development. It became a powerful mechanism, and due to COVID-19, India-Russia did not hold a summit in 2020. Leaders of the two countries have met regularly annually for the past 20 years since the summit relationship commenced in 2000. But this situation, during this pandemic situation, it is not possible. So yes, I want to sum up here. Well, that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anshu, and thank you very much for a very comprehensive. I would say it was very little time, and you tried to give a very brief, a very lucid, overview of India's security needs and how Russia can fill the gap, and how that is going to be a key in sort of emerging of India as its aspiration, as an aspirational power. And in a very brief time, I think you touched upon a lot of important points, and thank you. Next in line is Ms. Sanjana Shrivastava. I can see Sanjana, she's right there, the video, I can see the video. Sanjana is going to be talking about, she is joining us from Vinoba Bhave University, and she is going to be talking about the evolution of US-India relations under Biden presidency. So this again is something which had really had rung a bell with a lot of Indians, because we considered, at least the ruling party in India considered Donald Trump to be an Indophile, and we thought that under Donald Trump, the relations are going to be really good. And with Biden in power, it might see a reversal. But ever since Biden has come, we've had rather, I would say, a sigh of relief that the major things about Indo-Pacific, etc., are same. But anyway, I'm still speaking from a generalist point of view. Over to you, Sanjana, for your presentation, and look forward to learning a lot from your presentation. So you have 7 minutes. Please start now. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself. Please, could you unmute yourself, Sanjana? Yes. Perfect.
Very good
Go ahead.
Very good evening, Dr. Swasti. And yeah, it's an honor to be a part of NICE International Studies Convention 2021. Special thanks to the chairperson and Dr. Pramod Jaiswal. So the topic of my presentation is, I would like, without any delay, I would like to present the screen. And
Please share your slide.
yes, sir. sorry for the delay. And yeah, so just a moment. I'm so sorry for the delay. Yeah. So the topic of my presentation is the evolution of the United States and India relations under Biden's presidency. And firstly, I would like to say that no two countries converge on all issues. There are commonalities and differences. There are criticism over some policy of Modi government. Is that because of conservative approach and less transactionalistic approach will benefit India in coming years? There is a misconception that Republican Party is better than the Democrats. So I'll be just presenting an analysis of different, different presidencies, starting from Bill Clinton. Under Democratic President Bill Clinton, strong bilateral relations was laid. Under Obama, Republican president had tensions with Indian-US relationship. Obama did not focus much on India, but second term sought to strengthen partnership. Free and open Indo-Pacific strategy was laid. LMOA was done at the end of the administration. Both countries could replenish Coxa and Beckham. Complex relationship cannot be laid through simplistic lens of which party is in power. So there was a prevalence of geographical situation plus nationalistic interest was important. Indian community majority supports Democrats and their stand is favorable to them. In this era, there was an upward trajectory prevailed during past 2 decades, and bipartisan support was there. Under Trump had an unpredictable and transactional policy that saw massive gain in defense and strategic partnership. Under Biden, these foreign policy trends lines will be broadly adhered to under Biden's presidency. So, under Biden's presidency, he takes an American initiative to be laid as per legacy of Obama administration. Biden was initiating India-specific legislation. Biden, I quote, "Get on phone with heads of states and say America is back. You can depend on us." His policy is return to liberal multilateralism, as well as being done by Obama administration. His focus is on rebuilding alliance with Europe and East Asia in these 2 regions, and have to bear with Trump's aggressiveness. Biden has focused on these issues, so I'll be pointing upon certain issues upon which Biden has stressed that he will strengthen the partnership between India and United States. So firstly, I would like to go with the Afghan issue. So President Joe Biden has said repeatedly that he refuses to hand off the war in Afghanistan to other 50 US presidents. Implicit in that statement is belief that the war shouldn't have been passed to him. Each president since 2001 has conducted an evolving mission in Afghanistan, one that resulted in tens of thousands of American and Afghan casualties, frustratingly futile attempts to improve the country's political leadership, and a Taliban that stubbornly refuses to defeat. Biden has explained his decision to withdraw US troops as a necessary choice for a war whose purpose had become done. Adding to it, he was set in motion by a deal with Taliban made by President Donald Trump. The chaos that ensued in evacuating Americans and Afghans who resisted war effort was a predictable and most avoidable outcome after Biden. US objective has been fulfilled, he said. And how can America spend 20 years in Afghanistan only to have the Taliban resume control again? So we can see that he is being criticized much upon the Afghan decision which he has made. So upon economy, I'll just say that even on economic issues, Biden is likely to be less transactional. And while US domestic agenda has become more insular in recent years, and Biden would need to address the interests of some of the key constituencies of Democrats. So climate change is another area of concern which Biden has taken. and he has decided to rejoin Paris Climate Agreement, proposed $2 billion to fund to deal with climate change and work with India in this issue. Next issue is nuclear non-proliferation, in which he has a promise for nuclear modernization. A new START treaty has been formulated, and future of great powers and arms remains uncertain. Terrorism, Biden is either dishonest or delusional on terrorism national strategy.
Antonina, you have 1 more minute to go. Okay,
yes.
So could please time yourself.
He has also said on cyber warfare that he collaborate, and of course the H-1B visa, which was relaxed to a number of Indians to say quickly touch upon the Iran issue, in which Biden pursued Iran deal. No one can trust Biden on an Iran nuclear deal after situation in Afghanistan. Israeli president has pushed Biden away from nuclear deal. Okay, so there are a number of concerns, multilateralism also there, and human rights. Like Biden faces a challenge to the Chinese adventuralism, promise to return engagement in multilateral institutions. So pivot to India is United States concern, but let's see what happens in the future. And to conclude, I would just like to say that Biden says none can be resolved again alone. So world is very much looking to post-Trump era. And Biden as well closely look to US allies and others or geopolitical, economic, environmental issues of concern. Absolute convergence is possible, and there are more convergence than divergence between US and India. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sanjana. I think you tried to, this is a, this is a topic which covers a lot of points, and I think you did a very good job when you tried to sort of bring together the major things and try to create a narrative about what really draws two countries together, not merely personalities, but things that go deeper and how convergences should be mapped. With this, we come to the perhaps the last presentation of today's session, and this is a presentation by Ranjitab. Ranjitab, I can see you right there in front of me. Ranjitab is also from JNU.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. And Ranjitab is going to be talking on something that I am really interested in. And he's going to be talking about something which is often overlooked, when you be talking about BRI and we're talking about Quad, etc., but not so much attention I have lately seen, on the Chennai-Vladivostok maritime corridor, which is very, very key, and one of the reasons why India cannot really afford to ignore either Russia or Iran, because this is this is a project where India, Russia, Iran are all members, but China is absent, if I'm not wrong, right? So with this, the floor is yours. You will be having about 7 minutes. Ranjita, please start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you to all. Good evening to all the panelists here. And I would like to thanks my gratitude towards the NICE management team and Dr. Pramod Jaiswal to offering me such a diverse platform where I can share my views. And I would like to share my screen here. Just a moment. My screen is visible, I think.
Not yet. Not yet. I cannot see your screen.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Still not visible, ma'am?
I'm afraid it is. Yes, now it's visible. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, okay, sure. Just a moment. So today I'm going to present on the Chennai-Vladivostok maritime route and India's geopolitical interest. So the why this route is, like, I would like to throw some views, like why there is a need for such a route, to develop between the Russia and the India lies on some certain core elements. These are like addressing the lack of connectivity issue between both the nation Russia and India, and second one is the low level of trade volume, and third one is the Russian Far East region. Before going on that, the core issue, I would like to draw some, give you some background on like when this Chennai Vladivostok maritime route laid its foundation. It was basically during 2019 when the Indian Prime Minister Modi came, was there in the Vladivostok to attend the Eastern Economic Forum meet. And that meet, this the plan, the Vladivostok Chennai maritime route laid its shape. It's still this is the proposed plan, and I have already said it has some certain elements, core elements. The first one is the addressing the lack of connectivity. Before this route, the current route is like connecting the both Russia and India is the connecting the western part of India's like the Mumbai port, and through like it's going through the Suez Canal, passing through Suez Canal and connecting the St. Petersburg route, which takes around 40 days to complete a one shipment. But this route is like something taking very it's supposed to take a very short time period, which is like 24 days in comparison to this previous route, that is from Mumbai port to the St. Petersburg. So the connectivity issue is one of the main core element of this proposed route, where so sometimes these connectivity issues been cited for the low level of trade relation between this China and Russia and India. So through this proposed route, both the nation wants to scale their trade volume, which is currently in terms of like for taking the annual terms, it is like 10 to 11 billion dollar annual. So through this connectivity, they are proposing to upscale their trade relation to, in terms of trade relation, 30 billion dollar, and in terms of investment, they're planning to upscale this to 50 billion dollar. So apart from these two core elements, it has some certain interest of Russia in the Russian Far East region, where India wants to take full advantage of the Russian Far East resources. That is, it's a region of Rozsa, which lies in the Russian extreme eastern part of the country, which is full of the natural resources. It has especially the energy resources. So, and the one of the other thing is very Russian Far East is that this region is very economically underdeveloped, and in terms of population, it has a very scarce population. So in fact, Russia also wants to collaborate with other partners, especially in India, where in 2019 we have seen that India has offered a $1 billion line of credit to support the Russian Far East development project. So the India is also interested in this Russian Far East region, and to get advantage from the economic resources, apart the energy resources. Apart from energy resources, it has ample number of mineral resources, which is like gold, coal, and other thing also. So these are some core elements where the both the nation wants to collaborate with each other through this proposed Chennai Vladivostok maritime route. So upon moving towards like this economic and aspects of this route, what India has geopolitical interest in this proposed route is that it has some four elements. First one is the energy security. Second one is to India's ambition, like the Act East policy. India wants to promote its Act East policy. Third one is India Indo-Pacific vision, and fourth one is the curtailing Chinese aggressive posture in the region. Coming to the first one, this energy security. The India's energy, most of the energy imports come from this Middle East region, where like 80 to 90% of energy resources directly come from this region. That is a very volatile, I must say. And we have seen in like when the US sanction on Russia, India has it has damaged India energy export from the Iran, especially Iran, the petroleum. So India wants to look for something very new, that is, and this newness can be achieving from India can achieve from this Siberian energy. There is a area where in like the Sakhalin, India is already in expanding its footprints to get advantage of this energy resources. So,
Ranjita, you have one
diversity-
more minute. Ranjita, I'm sorry
Okay,
to butt in.
okay,
Yes, you
thank
have one more minute. Yes.
And the second one is to India's lookist policy. After 2014, under Narendra Modi's government, we have seen that India wants very proactively and very vocally to engage itself with the other nation of the ASEAN. That is, and third one is India Indo-Pacific vision. In the Indo-Pacific, the South China Sea, that is, China is already there. India wants to expand its footprints. We have seen in energy level, so energy in terms of energy, the Vietnam, India is partnering with the Vietnam, where this the SR oil company is there. So apart from energy, advantage resources taking, India is also curtailing the Chinese aggressive posture. We have seen this China in South China Sea aggressive, where the China is denying this, the PCA ruling, that is the 9-dash line, we would say the 9-dash line, where India through this route wants to collaborate with the other Southeast Asian nations and to take the terminal, the energy resources to transport energy resources and to for their economic gain. So due to the paucity of time, I would not take too much time. So I would like to conclude myself. So my conclusion is that with this proposed sea route, that is Chennai Vladivostok maritime route, India is first wants to develop better economic relation with Russia, and second one is it is also wants to move expand its footprints in the other Indo-Pacific region to achieve its desired goal of a greater role in the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ranjita. Thank you so much for your presentation and for also finishing in time. So with this, we have come to the end of today's session, and the floor is now open for questions. I have not received any questions, in my chat box, but what I would recommend is that since all of us are here, we can go one by one. You can raise a digital hand, or you can, unmute yourself and ask a question directly. So please, anybody would like to go ahead with that? Ranjita, could you please stop sharing the screen? Meanwhile, for the time till the time people are thinking of questions, let me formally bring the session to a close. Okay, and meanwhile, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. I have certain set of questions for some people. This was a session which was devoted to understanding India's foreign policy challenges, and like from the sheer variety of papers which were presented here, it is very obvious that India's security challenges and foreign policy challenges in the current world order are numerous and require various types of engagements at different levels. There were a lot of theoretical papers, very, very good theoretical papers which were presented, and papers which talked about how India can actually play a role in sort of identifying certain security challenges and thereby then setting the norm for for maximization of India's interests. Similarly, there were a lot of papers on certain topics which are often overlooked when it comes to India, especially the northeastern states, for example. Then there was a paper, a very, very good paper on, on India and China with respect to the water, Brahmaputra river problem. And, it was rightly pointed out that because China controls Tibet and the river flows from there, so therefore this is going to be a point of contention and something that we need to be really looking at. I would, thank Dr. Manan Dwivedi. He talked about the convergence of India and American interests in global polity, a very richly textured paper, a very richly textured theoretical paper. And I'm sure, it's a larger debate, which if we had better time, you could probably go into more details. Professor Rozsa, she talked about in India and Iran relations. And again, she looked upon certain very key components, and especially, she talked about the sanctions and the CAATSA, etc., and how it is important in the context of, what USA has, the role that USA plays. Similarly, Dr. Antonina, I already discussed, she talked about India-China relations in the context of the water, the river. Okay, that's something very important. Dr. Aleksandra from the University of Warsaw talked about the northeastern states and something which is very key to understanding India's Look East and Act East. And actually, it's a very great internal challenge also for India. Then a paper was presented by me, and I was interested in looking at how the arrangement of the Quad, which is like a loosely built multilateral forum of converging interests, not really functions like a NATO, and how that similar cooperation is going to be seen in India's intervention in outer space. And I gave kind of an argument of what really China is doing there, and what is the status of the International Space Station, which is coming to an end in a few years, which will then have this space where other countries can come and collaborate, and we will see a kind of like-minded countries coming together. Similarly, yes, I can see Professor Rozsa's hand up there. So just wait, I'll in a moment come to you. Let me just wrap up the papers that were presented. Dr. Anil Kumar Mohapatra, again, he presented a very, very richly textured paper on India's aspirations in the new global order and opportunities and challenges. And any such paper which aims to understand the global order or the world order is something which is very important for us, because we live in times which are changing very fast, which are full of contradictions and paradoxes, and yet we have to make sense of the times, right? So that was a paper, and he went in detail, something I personally really liked about the systemic challenges that India has, and how that can play a very important role when we are trying to look at what norms to develop. Similarly, then we had a paper from Anshu, and Anshu gave a very good lucid presentation on India-Russia bilateral energy cooperation. I think that was something that, in a way, Ranjitap's paper kind of, complemented, because Ranjitap was talking particularly about the Chennai-Vladivostok maritime corridor, which runs from Iran and also presents a very, very important opportunity for India in terms of its, outreach, to Central Asia and that region. Okay, so these two papers kind of complemented each other, and I thoroughly enjoyed and actually learned a lot from these two, because these were very based on specificities, okay, apart from the theoretical claims that they were making. Similarly, there was one paper by Sanchana. Sanchana, she talked about the evolution of US-India relations under Biden, because there was a lot of speculation, okay, about how the relations are going to change after Trump, etc. And she threw some systematic light on what really is, the rationale behind convergence of interests, and how those policies are done, and not merely by speculation and personality differences. So I think this is what we've come to an end of today's session. I saw Dr. Rozsa raise a hand. Dr. Rozsa, could you please unmute yourself and go on with the question you have, please?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Swasti. I think I would like to thank all my fellow panelists, including yourself, for the wide range of very, very interesting. As I said, I am, if not an absolutely newcomer, but almost a newcomer to the region. So there were some issues which we are dealing as well, but from a different perspective. So the water issue was very interesting for me, although I am much rather dealing with the Nile water controversy. But my question would be to you, Dr. Swasti, and especially because of the space program. And I tell you why. At my university, we have just started a space cyber research program, which is dealing mostly with, if I understand it correctly, mostly with the legal background to the issue and the unfolding legal context of the issue. But my question is that how can you, or how India perceives, or how India wants to address the threat that is innate in the dual-use nature of anything that is space, starting from the missiles, and you know that Iran is also having a robust missile program, including also the plans towards the extra orbital, so kind of satellites and so on. But here I would like to see what is the Indian way of thinking, or what can you tell me that how is India proceeding with such a space program, ambitious space program, while in the meanwhile just making sure that the dual use equipment, technology, whatnot, is not misunderstood and taken for a military program.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think that's a very, very relevant question, because that is a kind of an existential question, you know, if I may use that word. So one thing that I would like to elaborate upon is that, you see, when you look at India's space program, what we see is that India's space program has matured. So when I say maturing, it actually has undergone a shift. Now, what really is that shift? Okay, so earlier, you know, India's space program for many, many decades was morally driven, that really opposed militarization of outer space. Okay, but around the 2000s, because of the various security concerns, China, Pakistan, terrorism, etc., all of that, you know, this particular morally driven space program that initially was there, and which was all about, you know, the civil, so to say, betterment of Indian people, etc., and world at large, that started to change a little. And then when China did their first ASAT in 2007, that became, you know, like a lot of scholars on this would argue that that became the single biggest determining factor which drove India's new approach. Now, as you say, what really is this new approach, and why do I say that hybridity is important? You see, India has established a couple of things. One is called the Defense Space Agency in 2019, which is very recent. And this DSA, or the Defense Space Agency, is expected to be a forerunner for a full-fledged aerospace command, right, which will likely to come. Not just the DSA, India is also establishing what is called a Defense Space Research Organization, or DSRO, which is meant to undertake research and development on the capability mix, okay, which is required because, you know, you need strategy, you need policy development, etc. So, and in July of 2019, you know, when all of this was happening, you know, India developed what is called as the In-Space X, right? It is a tabletop war game. This involves all the different stakeholders like military, the scientific establishment, you know, obviously when I say military, of course, I mean the political will. So all of this is a kind of, this is how I kind of highlight how there is growing synergy. Okay, and this approach that we see today of India tackling the Space 2.0, the entire understanding of Space 2.0 basically says that, you know, we have to look at space in terms of something which is a hybrid, you know, space of engagement, because we cannot afford. Why do I say that the dual use is important? Space 2.0 uses, there was not so much time, so I would be rather quick. Space 2.0 uses two techniques, okay, and these techniques are developed by David Malcolm. He's very, very well-known space, you know, specialist from Australia. He says there's augmentation and reconstruction. Why these two techniques are important is because we cannot really have, you know, one equipment for one purpose, because we cannot really afford to have as much space debris. Okay, which is another very important problem. So when I say that India so far has been a very responsible spacefaring nation, has a you know, reputation of a very responsible spacefaring nation, that goes hand in hand with India's kind of maturing and understanding the Space 2.0 and this growing synergy. So this is something which is a work in progress. And right now, all I can say is that banking upon how we have developed it so far, we it is probable that we are going to go in the right direction. But of course, I cannot give you any guarantees, and we are going to be very careful about any mishaps, if any. So right now, I think this is all I can say at the moment. Do I answer your question? Anyone else? We still have some time to go. Any other question? Any other question? Okay, I don't think there are more questions. Well, I have a question for Dr. Aleksandra. Are you there, Dr. Aleksandra?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you did a presentation on India's, northeastern states, right? India's foreign policy with respect to
yes,
northeastern
exactly.
states. Yes. So what are your thoughts? I mean, recently there was a lot of, we have a border problem between two northeastern states. Okay. So, I mean, how do you think of, this problem as kind of affecting the India's internal security matrix? And do you feel that the Indian establishment, the government establishment, has not really been proactive in sort of tackling the Indian northeast?
I'm sorry, I just lost the first part of your question. You mean the border problem with China, right?
No, the internal border problem.
Internal, okay.
Indian northeastern states are basically fighting, between each other.
Okay, now I got it. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Swati, for the question. I believe, as probably all of us know, that the northeastern part of India is the most troubling part of India when we talk about domestic conflicts, especially border problems. I remember my trip to India 10 years ago. I spent around 2 months doing research, and at that time there was a big crisis in Assam because Bodo tribe wanted to separate and create Bodoland. That was the first time when I saw it with my own eyes, what can happen when the tendencies to create own state are really visible. So for at least 10 years now, I look always at northeast of India. My primary area of research is regional parties in India. So I deal with Trinamool Congress, of course, Tamil parties, then Akali Dal, for example, from Punjab and so on. But coming back to your question, so I believe that the central government is quite reluctant to get deep into the problems of a border conflicts between seven sisters, because India now have a lot of other challenges to deal with. Not talking now only about the COVID situation, especially since March, April, but there are a lot of other challenges, like obviously conflict in Arunachal Pradesh with China, or then we have, of course, Kashmir issue. So I strongly believe that the central government is trying to put as least energy as possible that the internal war will not start, or rather open conflict. Yeah, and I strongly believe that without creating a proper institutions and also some boards of expertise which will help to negotiate, it will be extremely difficult to deal with the issue, because as far as I know, I spent some time in India, around 3 years in last 10 years, that people from northeastern part of India, not all of them feel very connected to, as I call it, mainland India. Yeah, so that's definitely reflect that there's a need for a lot of cooperation on the central level. Yeah, so the people from the central government would understand better what are the circumstances, very special circumstances, which the people from Northeast have to deal with. Yeah, so to sum up, to answer your question, I strongly believe that the central government need to put much more effort in dealing with the internal domestic problems in Northeast, but to do it, there need to be an infrastructure, institution, money, and logistics, because doing everything ad hoc is pointless. Yeah, we had a long story with Indira Gandhi trying to deal with it, of course, Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and Rajiv Gandhi, and signing other actors like Assam Accords, other accords, but they need to be very well thought and designed policy. Otherwise, I believe it will be quite pointless to start anything, because as I said in my presentation, we have so many other factors which influence the situation in northeastern part of India. So definitely there's a huge challenge for the central government to understand and deal with the issues in northeastern India.
Oh, that was really very comprehensively put, Dr. Aleksandra. And I must say, I'm sure a lot of Indians would be really very kind of happy and impressed by the time and the knowledge, the deep knowledge that you have of India and the society and the problems there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have a question from Dr. Pramod, and Dr. Pramod is asking a question to Anshu. Okay, so Anshu, I think you can read the question. The question is that what is the role of Russia in India-China tensions. Acha, the question is asked from Facebook, perhaps. Okay, so I guess this is streaming live on Facebook, and somebody's asked a question. Anshu, would you like to respond? Anshu, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. The question is that what is the role of Russia in India-China tension?
Thank you so much. I think Russia-India-China organization RIC can play a very vital role for India-Russia energy cooperation, because I think China is very emerging country in South Asian countries, and it can play a very important and major role for energy cooperation with Russia, and it is very important for India also to cooperate with China to motivate trade and investment in energy sector.
Thank you. I can see Dr. Anil Mahapatra's hand going up. Dr. Anil, do you have a question?
Madam, I have a question for Rozsa, Professor Rozsa.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Does she hear me?
Yes, I do.
Dr. Rozsa,
Yes.
thing is that you know that India and Iran are having a very good relationship and understanding, because you know in 2012 Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh attended the NAM summit in Iran, despite the fact that America was very much even not happy that India should attend, but India attended, even if ruffling the feathers of America. Then another thing, that the Chahbar port, that India is you know taking a road from constructing a road from Afghanistan through the Chahbar port, so India and China, we are having a good relationship. But the question is that in Afghanistan, India and America, they worked together. But in Afghanistan, if somebody was against America's presence, they were Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran. So when America is leaving, Biden said that by end of August, they have to leave. But thing is that, will it impact India's relationship with Iran in some way?
Okay, may I answer it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Or maybe Anil would like to add to this, or that's another question. Okay, I am going to answer it. Well, thank you very much for the question, which was much more a remark, and I fully agree with you. I think that the Indian-Iranian relations are very, very manifolded. And as I said, they have these historical documents, the Tehran Declaration, the New Delhi Agreement, and so on, and these kind of cooperations. However, because of the external pressures, most notably by the Trump administration, there were issues in which India stopped. I fully agree that India, for a very, very, very long time, even under US pressure, did not stop its relations with Iran. And you mentioned here the NAM, the Non-Aligned Movement Summit in 2012, but I could go back to an even most spectacular, should I say, event in 2005 when President Bush was visiting India, and when it was about the 1-2-3 agreement between India and the United States and about the Indian nuclear issues. And then President Bush tried to pressure the Indian Prime Minister to isolate, to step back from the Iranian relations, which he did not. He was not ready to do that. So I think that there are more instances. With regard to Chabahar and the Chabahar port, I think that the pressure by the Trump administration and the temporary halt in Indian participation in certain projects related to the Chabahar port will be restored and will be restarted as soon as possible. But when you check the Indian national budget, you would see that in the year, I think 2019, 2020, the title named Chabahar, or that comes under Chabahar, the budget amount has gone down very significantly. This, however, I am sure that will be reinforced and restarted, especially with the visit, as I mentioned, the defense minister and foreign minister Jaishankar last year to India. And I don't know, but I cannot foresee even a kind of cooperation among the countries that you mentioned. You mentioned India, you mentioned China, you mentioned Russia, you mentioned Iran, you mentioned Pakistan. I think, and this is increasingly my impression, that there are issues which are Asian issues. And although the United States is there, and although the United States may have influence over certain issues, but there are other issues over which the US cannot do anything. And I tell you a very simple physical figure. I mean, if India wants to reach Afghanistan and it cannot go through Pakistan, but even if it could go through Pakistan, it would be twice as long as when India comes to Afghanistan from the Chabahar port, which is like 500 kilometers to Afghanistan also. Obviously now Afghanistan is a different story, but it is not about physics and physical distances. So I think that at least here in my country, in international relations, there is a phrase which we have started to use more and more. It is compartmentalization, meaning that if two countries have relations on one issue, we can cooperate. On another issue, we are antagonizing each other. On a third one, we have tensions. On a fourth one, well, we bear with each other. And I think that this will be increasingly the way forward, because no one can bear and pay real wars anymore, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rozsa. Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra. And let me now just take a minute to wrap up the session formally. Let me thank NICE for doing this great, I would say, and very relentless, regular academic work. And I think they really deserve a huge round of applause. It was a pleasure to chair the session and also present. I would like to thank everyone, all my co-presenters, the audiences who have asked the question. I'm sorry, because of paucity of time, we've had to rush. So, but I guess this is how the academic world is. So please don't take it, personally. Thank you so much. So over to you, Pramod.
Distinguished Chair, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, as we have come to the end of this session, we would like to express our sincere gratitude and thanks to the Chair for agreeing to chair and moderate the session today. Our sincere thanks also goes to all the speakers for being a part of the event and delivering such comprehensive and convincing presentations. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations. Finally, we must also mention our deep sense of appreciation for the audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live. Thank you for your valuable time and attention and for making this session productive with your questions. Once again, we are truly honored to have you all with us today. Please do join us in the next session. Thank you so much.